We are live. We are live. Welcome, audience, to Wisdom Wednesday. And this is yet another episode of Wisdom Wednesday where we just give you all of the wisdom on this Wednesday. You get one good hour of us and we just spell it out for you. Today's episode is, let's call it Home Buying 101. And I am so excited about Home Buying 101. Guys, my name is Letitia Grant, and I am the National Chair of House Then the Car.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Stephanie Milburn. I am the campaign manager for House in the Car, and today we are joined by our awesome co-host, Ms. LaTanya Donaldson.
Hello, Stephanie. Hello, Letitia. I'm LaTanya Donaldson, Vice President of Multicultural Lending for Prime Lending. And as usual, it is such a treat to be here with you beautiful ladies once again on Wednesday Wisdom.
Yes, absolutely. First, I don't think, and we've talked since Turkey Day, but how was your Thanksgiving, LaTanya?
Oh, as for everyone, it was different, but it was still a wonderful day. So much gratitude. We actually, our family, we were like, okay, we don't know how to social distance on Thanksgiving. However, we just made sure that our circle was very small, and our Thanksgiving was hosted out of my sister's garage. So, we kind of have a tradition in our family where we all kind of go around the horn and talk about what we're grateful for. And I don't know, as I was listening to my family members, I thought about Dr. Seuss's green eggs and ham, right? I'll have my green eggs and ham on a train, blah, blah, blah. But I was thinking, I'll have my family in this garage, whatever. To me, it made it more special. So how was your Thanksgiving?
Yeah, it was great. We had an awesome time. We went to my grandmother's, so I'm definitely thankful. My grandmother is 93 years old. 93, like, right, because our grandparents our grandmother are the same age. So she's 93, and we went over to her house and spent Thanksgiving there because, of course, she's not mobile. So we just kind of go to her with a small group of family, my immediate family. And, we just had a great day. It's kind of like most of the things that we're doing right now. Even here, us being here on this Zoom platform today, our virtual stage, as we call it. Things are different, but things are great. Stephanie?
Absolutely, I agree. Ladies, it was different for us as well. We did do just immediate family. And, normally we have our extended family, which a lot of my friends have become extended family, but we just chose to keep it. It was about 5 or 6 of us there. So we kept it very, very small. But of course, we were all thankful for being able to spend that time with each other. And different is not always bad. Doing things the safe way is, definitely something that we look forward to. I just got a text from my sister today. She was like, "Hey, are you still having Christmas Eve at your house?" And I was like, "Yeah, it's just be a little different. It's just gonna be again, same as Thanksgiving." So we're already preparing for it and just making sure that we're, practicing social distancing as much as we can. We just want to be safe. So and I'm excited about today's episode. I feel like all of our episodes are probably Home Buying 101, but 101, 102, 103. So,
right.
But definitely excited for today's Wisdom Wednesday episode. And we do have a special guest with us today, and it is none other than our Realtors professional, and that is Miss Kiana Jones. And Kiana is the president of the Columbus Association. And so we're excited to have her here with us today. Not only is she the president, she is also an HTTC ambassador. So we're excited to have her on our House in the Car show because she is an ambassador. So let me just give you a little bit of information about Kiana. So, not only is she a realtor, but she's got a lot of other accolades to boot. So Kiana is a native of Shaker Heights, Ohio. She attended Ohio State University, majoring in mathematics. I know Letitia's probably excited about that one because she taught 6th grade math. So Kiana began her professional career with McDonald's Corporation, providing corporate accounting for over 150 stores. So she knows about the money. She went on to give 11 years of fiscal public. Okay, you know what? She's got all fancy. She said fiscal public service. I don't know what fiscal means. Y'all better start looking up these terms, okay? So she, fiscal public service, working for the state of Ohio Department Taxation, Department of Mental Health, Treasurer of State, and finally creating and implementing all fiscal and budgetary policies and procedures for the Ohio Manufactured Homes Commission. So that's a lot in itself. So kudos to you, Kiana. During this time, Kiana had the pleasure to serve as the agency MBE Edge Officer, where she had discretion and oversight of agency spending with minority vendors to exceed state minimum requirements. In 2014, with the support of her husband and 3 children, Kiana became a licensed real estate agent with Carlton Realty. In addition to real estate, she is active in recruiting agents to Carlton Realty and the Columbus Realtors Association. Kiana stays connected to the community as a volunteer volleyball coach and PTO member. In 2018, 100% of Kiana's real estate transactions were considered affordable housing and or involved minority clients. So Kiana, tell us a little bit about yourself other than what we have. Tell us something that we don't know. So welcome to our Wisdom Wednesday show. So tell us a little bit about some things that our audience may not know about you.
All right. Well, I want to thank all of you ladies for having me on the show today. I am so excited to be joining you on this episode to talk about home ownership. And what you don't know about me is I'm shy. Huh? Can you believe that? I am. But no, I will tell you, I have a strong desire with regards to fair housing and affordable housing. That is my ultimate mission, not life, but in life, because that pertains to me as well, and that affects all of our lives. So the big thing about me is I try to encompass all of those things that you just read about. I try to bring that somehow back to housing, fair housing, or affordable housing. So somehow real estate has become my life, and I try to incorporate all of those aspects into it.
Yeah. After hearing the bio, you're like a woman of my own heart. So we've worked together on other episodes and our Tuesday episodes, but I hadn't had an opportunity to hear all of those facts. Operating in this affordable housing spectrum is definitely a little different. So today's questions, we're going to kind of tackle it from that perspective, and then of course the perspective of others, because it's important that we give the wisdom to everyone. We want everyone to see the difference between one versus the others. So I'm glad to hear your experience with the affordable housing arena.
Thank you.
Tanya, were you gonna say something?
Well, no, Kiana, welcome. I love all those things that you've been involved in. And I just think today's conversation, I'm just kind of sitting over here excited, to Letitia's point, I think it's going to fit very nicely into what we've been talking about, Home Buying 101. Stephanie, I like that. I think we're probably at 104.5 right about now. Yeah. But no, it's a great topic, one that's near and dear to my heart. So Prime Lending being a proud sponsor of this series, we're just excited to participate.
Yeah. Here's where I want to start. So we know a lot of this has been kind of 101, but let me back up and let's talk about what Wisdom Wednesday is intended to do. So during Home Ownership Changed My Life Super Series Tuesday, during our Tuesday sessions, we're telling people, okay, you should do this. You should invest in a home. Home ownership is important. Just do it. Home ownership. But here on Wisdom Wednesday, what the platform is to give people the information, to give our consumers the knowledge, so that they can successfully complete a transaction. So Home Buying 101 today is what we're going to start, and we're going to look at this from the realtist perspective. And yes, everyone, I said realtist perspective. What is Home Buying 101 from a realtist perspective? And I love 101 because for me, it's important, Kiana, is it, and considering the fact that, you know, you operate in this affordable spectrum, how important is that one-on-one for your initial consultation with your client?
My gosh, that is actually the very first thing that happens is I'm sitting down with the client, getting a feel for what they're looking for. As a realtist, we are the trusted advisor to the community. So they're going to trust the lender that I give them offerings to, and also decisions with regards to the home. And so what happens is the first thing we do is they say, hey, I'm interested in a home. Okay, we need to sit down and talk. And the first thing I say is we talk and we make a plan. Because in our community, you know, we're so used to hearing no all the time that that's not even the option. I say, let's make a plan so that it's not going to be a no, it might be a not right now, but we're going to sit down and make a plan for you. And that's the very first step.
Yeah. So I love that being your first step. And, you know, I had a conversation with a lender and not prime lending. I had a conversation with a lender, and with that conversation, what I said to them, and I had to make sure I said not prime lending, because this is not a conversation I've had to have with prime lending. And what I said to them was, we have to keep in mind when you're operating in a specific, and by specific, I mean affordable space, you're working with an individual that is accustomed to hearing the word no. So you have to be very careful with how you handle them. And you need to let them know that no doesn't mean no. It just means not right now. Right. Now, I'm so grateful to say with my partnership with Prime Lending, they have, man, giving me the list of options when a client is not ready right away, because that's important. So when an individual comes to you as a realtist for their initial consultation, everybody wants to know, where do I start? Where do I start? It's, guys, you can call your realtors first. You can call your realtors first. You can call Prime Lending first. Either way, what's going to happen is you're going to have a one-on-one, because we need to understand, both parties, the realtors and the lender needs to understand, what is it exactly you're looking for? What do you want to do? And if you're not ready for what you're looking to do today, how do we get you ready?
Absolutely. And I think another point to that, Letitia, sometimes the customer isn't quite sure what they're looking for. They're looking for the guidance.
Yeah.
You know, to your point, you know, rather you start with a good realtist or a lender, but here I think this is what we build up to. How do we start? And let's get you started.
Right. You know, my mantra is always, when you know better, you do better. So getting them started, and like Kiana stated, having a plan is how they're going to do better, because they're going to know what they need to get into to get started.
Yeah, absolutely. So it's great. So that person has called Kiana. And that person that's in Ohio, they've called Kiana. They're working with Kiana. They've developed a plan, because, you know, sometimes it's, when I was in high school, I sought the assistance of a guidance counselor. In this case of home ownership, your realtist is your missing component to advising you as to what's going on in the market. If you don't operate in this market every day, it is forever changing. You know, when you go to bed and wake up the next morning, it could be a different, and Latanya is nodding her head, because especially on the lending side, things change every single day. Mm-hmm. So it's important to work with someone that's going to help you to develop a plan. But once you've developed that plan, now you need a document behind you. And so then we come to the pre-qualification versus pre-approval. And Latanya, I'm just going to let you dive right into it. And I know you don't give one, but just tell them why you do not.
So, all right. So first, let me break down the difference of a pre-qualification and a pre-approval. And I'll give you a little history. I started in this business 25 years ago. Something like I said, 25 years ago. Very, very young, very young. But you know, the education, as you guys know, right? It's not just for the home buyer; it's also for the realtors, the real estate professional, because there is a difference in that, in the term, okay, in that terminology of pre-qualification and pre-approval. Pre-qualification just means, you know, we mentioned that initial consultation. I'm going to sit down. I'm going to say, hey, Letitia, okay, so here are just a few questions I have right now. You know, kind of give me a sense of what your credit looks like. Let's talk about your debt. Who do you owe? I mean, everyone, child support, but I need to know all these things. Do you have a budget? Do you have a budget that you keep? Do you mind if I look at that? Then obviously I'm going to ask about your income. What does that look like? So from that information, that's a starting point for a lender because now I can say based on, I put emphasis on, based on which you just told me, right? We would probably pre-qualify you at X amount of dollars. $300,000 house would probably be affordable based on what you just gave me. All right. So do you hear that? That pre-qual, I mean, it's only as good as the information that person is giving me. Now, when I move into a pre-approval mode, this means now I have my eyes on your documentation. Okay, I'm inputting your information into an AUS or automated underwriting system. So now I have my eyes on your pay stubs. I have my eyes on your credit. All right. So based on the documentation that we receive and we input the information and we get back what's called a pre-approval. Okay. Meaning you're approved subject to these things like appraisal, title. I might, the underwriting system may say, hey, I need for you to prove up on how much child support you're paying. Okay, I need for you to write a letter of explanation. So there should be a list of conditions with that approval. Now, once we satisfy all those conditions, and a live underwriter has looked at this and signed off on it. And I'm making this sound like it goes that fast, right? But there are a lot of things in between, right? But it can go that fast. Fine. But so once we get through that, then we issue that final loan commitment. That's what we all like to see. We get all excited then because then we start calling title companies and scheduling and that sort of thing. But again, the difference between a pre-qualification is just really an initial conversation. We had Lydia on here about a week ago. Really, anybody could almost pre-qualify. She gave you a tip about how do we calculate someone's income. I still do it the old school way. Okay, if they're paid hourly, I take that times 2,080. Why 2,080? Is 2,080 hours in a work year. Okay, then divide that up into 12. I have your monthly income. If they're salaried, that's even easier. I'm just going to take their salary. So right there, I'm just trying to get a feel of how much house they should be looking at.
You said one word. You said it sounds like it's quick, and look, guys, if you're out here listening, and if you don't listen to anything else that I say today, you're not necessarily looking for quick. You're wanting to set yourself up for smooth.
Right.
And having a pre-approval is the start of a smooth process.
Right.
There Absolutely. Is these tax returns, the number of individuals that have a small business with large amounts of write-offs, it's unbelievable. That automated underwriting system may or may not ask you for your tax returns. If it asks you for your tax returns, your $70,000-$80,000 a year occupation could turn into a $40,000 a year occupation. So it's important. And again, we're wanting to set you up for a smooth process. And that's why we're here going over these things with you today. Now, Kiana, let's talk about the document that you need to crank your car. Before you start that car and start showing any homes, why is it important for you to have that pre-approval letter?
Okay, so I was just about to chime in on all of that because even when we say pre-qualification and pre-approval, even those things are not created equal in our world. Because it heavily depends on the lender. And again, back to us being trusted advisors. As a buyer, you're going to trust one of your people at least in the transaction. And sometimes when I sit down with a buyer, as I did with another lender the other day, the lender, they didn't disclose information to the lender that I was privy to, just in conversations that I had with them. So it's really important that you make sure you have someone that has a working relationship with the lender so that we can have those communications, because she's saying, oh, I'm not sure if this loan will work. And I said, oh, did you know she had money in the 401k? And she's like, she didn't mention 401k to me. We're solid now. So it really comes down to those conversations, and to follow up with you. For me to get that pre-approval in my hand, I just don't take a pre-approval that you send over to me and say, okay, I'm pre-approved. I'm following up with the lender and I'm finding out what that pre-approval entails, because also we have to find a house that's going to fit your financing.
Yeah.
So that's what I tell all buyers, is that, I try to stay in my lane. I'm the house, the lender's the money. If you have a question about the money, you call your lender. If you have a question about the house, you call me. But both of you have to make it through underwriting, though. So it's important that I have that conversation with the lender so that we can understand what your financing entails. Are you using some kind of down payment assistance that may require an additional inspection, or does it take 45 days to close on this particular product that the lender is using? So there are details that I need to know about the pre-approval. And in those conversations, that will let me know how much the lender has really checked out about this buyer, to see.
And Kiana, I'm sorry. I just want to interject, because what you're talking about, see, also what's very important is the partnership between the lender and the realtors, because it should be a partnership. Those things that you just questioned, see, that loan, well, of course, if you're working with prime lending, but no, that was such a shameless plug. But no, seriously, I mean, those, you should never really be put in a position to even have to ask your client that. That conversation is already taking place between you and that lender, hopefully, right? So it's very important, because we're here as partners, you and I, to advocate on behalf of our customer, right? We share that customer. So partnership is critical to a successful transaction.
And I'm glad that you brought that up as well, Latanya, because when I receive a pre-approval letter, it has the loan product and it has if they're utilizing any assistance. Now, here's the one thing that I want, Kiana, for you and I to kind of expound upon, because what the consumers heard was, oh, you may have a certain product. We have heard historically people say, oh, I found the house myself. I don't necessarily need a licensed professional. And in this situation, I don't need a realtist. We're about to share with you, audience, some things, and now it's time, Stephanie, for them to get their pen and paper out. We're about to share with you some things in some areas that, again, if you don't do this every day, you could easily miss. So Kiana said, I need to know what type of product you're using. Well, why is it important for the realtist to know what type of product a consumer is using if their job is the house?
Well, the reason being is that all homes are not all things to all financing products. So I have a lot of people that are approved for FHA, and they see these fixer-uppers or something like that. And of course, it would be ideal, to get them in there, because some of it's simple cosmetics that they could probably do on their own. However, as I am walking through this house, I'm seeing peeling paint. I have no GFCIs in places. There are safety issues. I'm sorry, this house is not going to fit for you. So we need to.
I didn't mean to okay, another shameless.
I'm not saying as far as that particular financing.
No. Oh, what I was going to say, what FHA, just so you know, we'll do a $5,000 holdback for them. But go ahead. I'm sorry.
Yes, absolutely. But the problem is when we have these sellers that are throwing houses on the market and it's as is, and they're not touching anything, and they haven't touched anything in 10 years. The problem is we have a lot of aging inventory. That's just the bottom line that's not been touched. So as a realtist, we need to get out there and see the home. We need to be there and see the home And what a buyer thinks that they can handle does not necessarily mean the bank will allow them to get that particular home. And that's really where we have to reconcile it for our buyers with regards to that pre-approval that we need to have in our hand and know the particular product that you're dealing with. And also know about the other products that are available with that lender, because should they be eligible for multiple products, say we do find a home, it may not work for this product, but hey, Latanya, do you think we found another property that we've identified? Is there a product that might work for this particular property? So there's a lot of different ways we can maneuver it. You just got to hang in there and let us work together and communicate so that we can figure out what's going to get you to the closing table.
Absolutely. That is
I just want to piggyback off of what, yeah. Absolutely. I was just going to say that whole partnership thing is very important, because when we're having a partnership with the lender, sometimes other details are involved, especially when a client wants a certain amount of house or a certain size, and then the lender might say, okay, you know what, they need to stay under this percentage of taxes or something like that. And so that's something that they may not know of. And when you have a trusted realtor and they have that relationship with the lender, then these things. So when you're looking for a house for them, okay, they can't go over 3.2% in taxes, so they can't go under over 3% taxes. So we know what neighborhoods to look for. So having you trusted realtors as well as that partnership with the lender is absolutely
important. And what I was just going to add that hey, communication is the key.
Exactly.
Absolutely. And then here's a beautiful thing I love about, each of you were so talented, and if I was buying a house all over again, since we've been doing house in the car, I promise you I would be blowing your phone up, because it is very important. Again, I know that in our business, you could agree, we kind of, sometimes we kind of go over the line, or just kind of meshes together, right? I'm not a realtist, but I probably know a little bit, enough to be dangerous, and vice versa. But I love the fact that you guys are so knowledgeable. Kiana talked about walking into a house and already, oh no, this won't go FHA. See, you need that. That's why these ladies will be your trusted advisors, because that is huge when you're out there.
Well, I'm just going to add one more hurdle to this relay, and I'm going to throw on top of that down payment assistance programs. As we know, the house looks completely different, or it has to look completely different for an individual that's seeking down payment assistance provided by the city or the county in most areas. How important, Kiana, is it when you're walking the house that you identify those areas?
Well, that is extremely important. And also another thing really important with, especially dealing with the city down payment assistance programs that are under the HUD guidelines for inspections and things like that, is really understanding the market and the seller. Because the seller has to be a little bit more accommodating sometimes for some of those transactions. So again, communication. You need to have that realtist that can get out there and talk to the seller and say, hey, I have a great person in there. Now, down payment assistance, we know it shouldn't be an issue, but when you're in a competitive market, and that's just a whole nother contingency to throw on top of it, you just have to find a way to be really creative. And I found that, really communicating with the listing agent, at most times having the lender call the listing agent to talk to them and say, hey, this is a solid buyer. Yes, it's down payment assistance, but they are solid. Those are the things that we try to do, to be really creative, to go the extra mile for people that need that help, because it's not a simple conventional offer that we're putting in. So we need to do extra things on our end to try to push that through.
Kiana, what I have found here for me, I can't control the city of Houston. I can't control Harris County. But what I can do is upfront, especially when we have a buyer that we already know is going to utilize the down payment assistance, we can, determine that we have a solid buyer, right? And what creates a solid buyer? That's an AU approval, all funds verified, they're good to go, right? And I can also confirm with the listing agent my professionalism. So I am going to overcompensate with those two areas because we have a whole nother area that we can't control. So when we submit the offer, every section is going to be completed. Every I is dotted and every T is crossed. And all documents are going to come together in one clean package, because what we know that may or may not be awaiting us on the opposite side are variables that are not within our control. So again, and I say this to say, why is it important to ensure that when you're seeking those things that you're working with a realtist? That's another reason why it's important, and especially an ambassador of House in the Car, because these are all things that we're going to be talking about and that we're going to be examining within House in the Car and under our platform when we talk about additional training. But it's just one of those additional layers that is placed upon an approval, which is why it's important that that the lender knows the full spectrum and the full background of the client that we're working with. Because, go ahead, Kiana.
Well, no, I just wanted to add on to the down payment assistance, because you learn something new every day about those programs. If it's not one thing, it's something else. One program, I just learned that you can't jump appraisal. You cannot gap appraisal for this program. So they get all the way down, and of course you can't gap it, but they won't even do a $500 gap, so that kind of knocks it out of this market. Like, forget it. We just can't use that program right now, so it's so important for us to know the different intricacies of these programs through communication with the lender.
Yep. Now we're right at a great segue, because what you've done is you've performed what I consider a visual inspection. You and your client, y'all have walked through the home and you've pointed out some things that you believe may be a problem. Of course, guys, we are here to serve you. So if it's something that you want to move forward with, then we just have to go back, have a conversation. Hey, Prime, they want to move forward with this home. 203K is not for them. Can you shoot me one of the other 20 renovation programs that you guys have so that we can get our client approved? So, but in moving on with that, so you have done a visual inspection. Where many of our buyers get crossed up is the difference between an inspection and an appraisal. And you mentioned appraisal, so go ahead and give us the difference.
Oh boy. Well, I will tell you, first off, I attend every single inspection that I can. I left one earlier this morning talking to the inspector, getting information about ice damming today, just to say. So for those reasons, when I go into a house, sometimes even just the visual for some of the pictures online, I can kind of look at it and see, okay, we're going to have some issues with this home. But once we step in, if I step up and it's amazing all the different things I know from those inspections. But the difference being, the home inspection is for the buyer's knowledge only, mostly in these instances, unless you can get the seller to make some repairs. But the inspection, you're going to pay out of your own money. And the whole point is for the inspector to try to break the house, to see if it breaks. And it shouldn't break. Yeah. It shouldn't break. If it passes inspection, it should not break. So you're going to give them $300+. They are going to find every little issue with this home. They are going to test outlets, windows. I've had some inspections where he said the door doesn't close properly. Okay. So as a realtor, first of all, that's our responsibility to make sure that we have them see the big picture for the inspection and use it as a roadmap, more so than to try to ask for the seller to repair everything to make it a brand new house again. Yeah. So that's first. That's your inspection. It's going to happen really fast. Honestly, you should feel good coming out of that inspection. You should feel okay. If you can't sleep coming out of that inspection, that might not be the house for you. Because even after the inspection, you're going to find some issues with it, but you're going to say, I might be okay with that. I still want this house. So my job is to make sure that you're comfortable through the whole thing, even after the inspection, saying, yes, let's work on some repairs, but I'm okay moving forward if it works out that way. But if you say I can't sleep, that basement is leaning over, what am I going to do? It's time to run.
Girl,
So
if the basement is leaning over,
yes,
cancel the inspection.
yes, I don't care how bad you want the house. You need to make some decisions at that point. So that's your inspection for your knowledge. Hopefully you can get some repairs, but that's for your knowledge as a buyer. Now, when I say that the house has to make it through underwriting, that's what I mean. That's your appraisal. It has to make it through underwriting. The appraiser, now depending once again on the type of product. So as a realtor, we are going through the house and I can look at some things and tell if the appraiser is, if he's FHA, if he's going to flag some things. Yeah. Now I'll tell you, in the past, people thought conventional appraisals were smooth sailing. They're not exactly like that anymore either. So we're looking at those, but that appraisal, they are checking the value of that home. So what we understand is you might say, I'm willing to pay $1 million for this home. I love it that much. And the bank says, okay, well, we'll give you 160 because the appraisal came back at 160. Understand that your house is worth $160,000. Now, if you have FHA, they are still looking for health and safety issues for that home. There's an entire checklist online that you can take a look at. And for one, peeling paint, any homes built prior to 1978. So hopefully your realtist is knowledgeable enough to not lead you far enough down that path to where you're at appraisal point and now you're getting flagged on things that should have been caught early on.
Kiana, you said peeling paint, and fortunately for me, I learned that very early in my career that FHA did not like chip paint. And so I get to the property and they're like, oh, there's chip paint. And I'm like, what? What are you talking? Who cares? And they're like, no, ma'am. Paint that.
That's where that $5,000 holdback would come in.
There you go. Fortunately, we were able to get the seller. We were able to get the seller to handle it.
Easy peasy.
Now, just a quick question with that. When you're doing that $5,000 holdback, can you do that in conjunction with down payment assistance? Because typically they won't allow any kind of repair escrows if you're coupling that with down payment assistance. So
here is what I'm going to defer on that question. Okay. And Kiana, have a loan officer in Columbus call you to answer that, because I don't. Letitia mentioned earlier in this segment that things change every day in this business, and since I don't actually originate, I have an answer, but I'm like, since we're live, that's right. Offline, I'll definitely get you that answer.
I'm always one of those.
That's a great question. No, that is a great question.
Operating in the affordable space, we get very creative. Very
absolutely
creative.
As you should.
and we make friends in high and low places.
That's right. That is correct. Yeah. So, you guys were talking about, the difference in the inspection and the appraisal. One of the things I'll just ask you, Kiana, just for just information for any potential home buyer that's listening to us. So, what if my appraisal comes back low? Let's say you use the example that I'll pay $1 million, but it only came in 160. But let's say I'm looking for an appraisal at 200,000, right? And it came in at 195. Does that mean as a buyer, I still can't buy the house? What does that mean for you?
Well, that means that can mean a couple of things. First of all, hopefully your realtist has done the proper comps, and whatever offers that you have put in, they have advised you that they feel that the value is supported by whatever amount you're in contract for. If they feel that that is supported, then I would encourage them to ask for it to be reconsidered. Reconsider it based on the comps that I've provided. If they're not willing, if you can't get anything done on that end, which, it happens sometimes, it's not impossible. But if you can't get it done on that end, then you'll have to, 3 things can happen. Either the buyer can say, hey, I'm willing to bring the extra money to the table, which that doesn't occur often. The seller can say, hey, fine, this is all the house is worth. I will reduce the amount to 195 for you, and let's get this thing closed out. Perfect. But if the seller says, no, you offered me 2,000, maybe we can meet in the middle somewhere. If we can't get any of those three things accomplished, and I'll tell you, some other things get creative beyond that, depending on how bad the deal needs to close or whatever things are happening. We can try to get a little bit more creative beyond that. But should we not be able to come to an agreement on this purchase price, at the end of the day, everyone is going to have to go their separate ways and try again.
Yeah. Unfortunately, just today I had to send over an amendment with the reduced sales price. We had performed the comps. Everything was good before I listed the property, and someone decided to sell their home for less than what they should have. That comp completely affected mine, so we had to reduce the price. We didn't have to though, but it was an FHA appraisal. FHA is stuck with the seller for 6 months. And the seller just decided, we'll go ahead and we'll do it this time. We'll go ahead and reduce it. But those things really hurt. They really kind of hurt your ego a little bit. It stung a little bit. As soon as I got the report, I was researching, pulling up properties to make sure that they were like comps. Because every so often, we're all human beings. Every so often, an appraiser can make a mistake as well. But I'm pulling up the properties that they use. And I had to draft the email and send it to the seller and say the comps that were used are sufficient. They're within line of your property. Unfortunately, this one closed before you did.
And Letitia, you bring up a really good point about the whole appraisal process, and that especially I'm sure you guys experience this when you're dealing with sellers more so. Okay, so you walk in my house. Oh, Letitia, I need for you to come over here and list my house. I have done this. I have done this. Girl, we have laid gold. We have gold. We're gonna let you walk on gold. When you hey, if you get a little hot, just press this. It's gonna blow cold. I mean, all these upgrades, right? Now, obviously, we know there are some upgrades that lend to the value of your property, right? But a lot of cosmetic stuff really does not. And you hit on something huge when you said comp. Do you guys mind just explaining from a realtor's perspective a little bit about comps and what that means in terms of what is, I guess my real question is, the meat of that appraisal value, where does that come from? What are we, what is that appraiser looking at? Because I'm sure you guys get asked this all the time.
All the time. Kiana, if you want to take that, you can. If not, I can dive right into it.
I mean, sure, I can take it. The one thing I wanted to mention first is that the thing about appraisals is that is like an open thing as far as the appraiser itself goes. I tell them, you can have an appraisal by one appraiser at this time on this day, and the second appraiser can come through 1 hour later and give a totally different value.
Yep.
So we're kind of at the mercy of that. So I never give them any kind of guarantee. But when we are talking about comparables, we are looking for similar homes in your immediate area. And the reason we are looking in an immediate area is because, for instance, now you see subdivisions going up, they go up around the same time. So you don't want to cross over major streets because you can see a 10 or 15 or 20-year difference in the age of the home, which makes a difference with style and things like that. Also, people need to understand if you're in a ranch and you look across the street and a 2-story sells for $250, your home, that does not mean your home is worth $250. We also look for similar styles because they require different amounts of material to build. They have different footprints. Try replacing a roof on a ranch versus on a 2-story. You'll see the cost difference there. So there are different styles that we're going to look at, the age of homes. Also, don't build a bedroom in your basement. The appraiser is not going to add that and say your home is worth $10,000 more because you have a bedroom down there. Appraisers don't add anything below ground level. They will take it into some consideration, But as far as bedroom counts and things like that, if you look at an appraisal, it's usually all above ground square footage that they're typically looking at. So those are the things really with regards to the meat, the things that you want to look at. So if you're on Zillow looking at homes and you see, I know,
Don't do it.
Don't look at this estimate. They'll have you messed up, but you definitely want to look at homes that are similar in style, the year that they are built, and finished about the same.
You said Zillow. I have a listing 978 Ringo. That's the street. Zillow has it at 978 Ashland. My phone's blowing up about this Ashland property that does not exist. So do not take that. Call your realtors and find out if that property exists. 978 Ashland does not exist, guys. So if you're watching and you're interested in 978 Ashland, do not call our office. Call for 978 Ringo.
That is hilarious.
Yeah. You know, and I'm just going to say, and I'm glad that we kind of touched on live. We are live. Welcome, audience, to Wisdom Wednesday. And this is yet another episode of Wisdom Wednesday where we just give you all
similar in style, the year that they are built, and finished about the same.
You said Zillow. I have a listing 978 Ringo. That's the street. Zillow has it at 978 Ashland. My phone's blowing up about this Ashland property that does not exist. So do not take that. Call your realtors and find out if that property exists. 978 Ashland does not exist, guys. So if you're watching and you're interested in 978 Ashland, do not call our office. Call for 978 Ringo.
That is hilarious.
Yeah. You know, and I'm just going to say, and I'm glad that we kind of touched on, because we're going to have an appraiser on one of our episodes, but I'm glad that we touched on it because I've had this question asked of me so often about a pool. And so many clients, in here in Houston specifically, and because different areas value pools differently. And I say, you know, here in Houston, a pool can cost you up to $50,000, maybe even a little more, depending on how extravagant.
That would be a bargain right about now. Trust me.
Okay. So considering a pool is $50,000, I asked the appraiser, how much value do you give for a house having a pool? And he says to me, it depends. How many homes in the area also have a pool? One. And even if it is unlikely that the other homes in the area has a pool, it may give you 15 to 20% of the value of the pool.
That's a realistic guideline.
And with that being said, that just let me know some of the things that you will add to your home will be for your family's pleasure. Exactly. Not for resale value. So keep that in mind. Please do not upgrade your home out of the market. Even my first-time home buyers, I always caution them not to buy the largest home in the neighborhood. At that point, where do you have to go? So those are some of the things that you want to consider. So, Kiana, I'm so glad that you touched on that appraisal. We don't have basements here in Houston, honey.
I know. When she started, but I love this, right? Just hearing her perspective from her area. I was like, oh, wow, you know what? I just learned something. Thank you, Kiana.
I am here in the Midwest, and I will tell you, this time last year, I put a house on the market. Cold-blooded, okay? Indoor pool.
Wow.
It did not conform to the neighborhood, though. Okay? Indoor pool in Ohio. You need indoor because outdoor pool, that's where you would get zero value in Ohio.
They have snow right now, Letitia. No, tell you.
You have an outdoor pool. I will tell you, a pool in Ohio can be a deal breaker for a lot of buyers. That's a deal breaker here. But a basement is more of a necessity here in Ohio. They want a basement. And I'll tell you, the appraiser came out and he says, I don't know what value to give to this. So he gave the pool no value. The indoor pool had no value because none of the homes in the area were like this home. They completely over improved the home, and it clearly would have been for their enjoyment. And I mean, this indoor was almost like a water park. The first time I went there for a birthday party, my kids, I was like, wow, I need to come back.
And and it makes you feel bad because whoever's buying that house, they're gonna get an excellent deal.
Exactly. And the pool is what sold the house originally. Yep. So, it's kind of crazy that the market will determine the what's important as far as an appraisal.
Yeah, and Kiana, to your point, like here in Texas, like we don't have the basements, but for homes that have things that are not attached, like if you have a second, like a mother-in-law suite, but it's not actually attached to the property, then the appraiser does not give you value for that. It has to actually be attached to the property. Like someone, like I had a cousin, and one of my cousins has a property, and that it's, he felt like it was going to be 1.4 million. But he had a second house on there, but the appraiser said no, because that property is not attached to, and so you can't get that added square footage. So that's some things that, a lot of times people don't understand. When you add to the property, but you're not adding to the house itself, the original property, then that value is not being added either. So it's kind of the equivalent of the basement. So yeah, if it's not attached, then you're not getting that added square footage to for the appraised value.
Yeah, and I just want to touch. Oh, sorry.
No, I was just going to say, but I love what you guys are saying, because I again, even when I used to originate, and especially when a customer is going to buy a brand new home and they walk into that model house and see all the bells and whistles and everything is upgraded, and you have to say, okay, come, listen, we'll get you with someone later who can do some of those things. Do not outbuy yourself, because again, if you like it and it's pretty to you, it's appeasing to the eye, aesthetically, then go for it. But, I think a lot has to do with how our market is going as well. Like in my last house, again, I'm in Texas. I had a pool built, right? Well, see, a beautiful thing happened. I mean, we're experiencing it right now. The values went out the roof. My pool was paid for about 5 or 6 times, So all of those things factor in to, how long are you going to stay in your house? And again, Letitia said it. If you like it, that's fine. But don't think it's going to add like this, tons of value to the house. But I know we are skipping over into another episode, but what a great topic.
I know. But I wanted to just add one more thing about that, and you actually segued perfect, Tanya, into that with regards to new builds and appraisal. And what I tell my buyers all the time is when they say, okay, we're starting in the 300s, okay, that's about where your home is really supposed to appraise at. Now, when you go into that design center and you start adding all those other things, I tell them with regards to resale, those are things people already expect in their house. You're building this into your price. So you have to understand, be really mindful on your 30-year mortgage to get those things done. And it's funny because I bring them back when they do decide to build. And I say, yeah, you remember all those houses that we looked at and they didn't have lights in the bedroom and they use lamps? That's because they said, no, I'm not taking that level 2 lighting package. It's because I don't need that plumbing, So I explained to them that the things that you're asking for on this new build is only going to push you up and maybe outside of the appraisal area. And builders sometimes are not as flexible as a seller because they are not invested in these transactions. So they're not as willing always to negotiate on appraisal.
You're absolutely right, Kiana. I had a client that was purchasing a new build, and the sales agent absolutely said, if it does not appraise, we're not going to lower the price, period.
Yeah. So I've learned quite a bit. I've learned that I'm not going to get any additional value for that luxury storage unit that I built behind my house. I've learned not to build a indoor pool in the basement that I do not have. Because I do have an attic now, and I should be able to use that for additional square footage. But I'm gonna leave that where it's at. That was just a joke. You can't use attic space for additional. But say that again, Stephanie.
I say at all.
At all, exactly.
Well, I said, no, you can't use it at all.
Right, at all. You shouldn't. And guys, we'll touch on that at another time. But you should not utilize your attic space as storage. It's a fire hazard. But Stephanie, go ahead and take us. I use it all the time. But take us to our Facebook. Do we have any questions from our Facebook audience?
We don't have any questions. However, we do have lots of engagement. Sharon says, hello, ladies. She also said Kiana is a powerhouse. So kudos to you, Kiana. You have a following. We do have several people that are watching. Sasha Allen says, great information, ladies. Mr. Humphrey says, wow, I didn't know that. So Latrice, great information. So it's a lot of information that everybody's listening to right now. And of course, I know my audience members has their pen and paper ready. So I know that you've jotted everything down and that you're taking this away and you're going to be successful in sharing the information, or if this is your way of learning information about how to purchase a home, because this is what Home Buying 101.
Well, Stephanie, I hope that they didn't put their pen and pad away, because now they are going to get ready to receive some information from Prime Lending.
Yes. So, you guys, anyone out there, you have any more information in about the home buying process, you're ready to be pre-approved, please reach out to us. My email address is Donaldson, L for Latanya, Donaldson, D as in Delta, ONALDSON @primelending.com. You can also use the conversation log and just email a question and I will respond to you. So are we ready to tell them about next week's episode?
Oh my goodness.
We get to go into Home for the Holidays.
Yeah.
That's right. Wednesday Wisdom will be Home for the Holidays. We'll start that series. See, and you know what? Kiana, she has her Christmas going on in the background.
Yeah.
I decided to wear something. I was a week early, but
listen, my kids made me do this the day after Thanksgiving. We were.
That's right. See,
I need to do better.
Okay, yeah, we're gonna need to see.
Well, you know how we do. We like to be really, really yeah, we like to be really, really festive. So you might see me next week with some Christmas headband or a Santa hat
out, right? That's right, because we are going to be talking about shoppers, tips, and tools.
Yeah.
Window shopping is over.
It's over.
Right. So I'm excited, and we're going to talk a little bit about down payment assistance as well. I believe we'll have someone on to talk about that.
I'm super excited. Super excited. The one thing that I did miss during my Thanksgiving break was this show. So glad that we're back and we're going to get this wrapped up. We won't be completely wrapped up by the end of the year. We're going to bring this into the first of the year. I love that topic. Window shopping is over. And for many reasons. For many reasons, window shopping is over. And we'll dive into that next week. Kiana, it was such a pleasure to have you on.
Absolutely.
Thank you. I enjoyed you ladies, and you just bring out the information I love to talk about. So thank you.
Right. And I will have someone reach out to you from the Columbus area.
Sounds good. Thank you.
Yes, guys, if you are in the Columbus, Ohio area, definitely look up Kiana. She is an HTTC ambassador as well as the Columbus Association president. And of course, she's an amazing realtist. And you will be seeing more of her on our HTTC shows next year. So don't worry about if you don't have access to her right now. Kiana is coming back in 2021. So she'll be joining us again on our Home Ownership Change Our Life shows when we resume in January.
Well, Stephanie, why don't they have access to Kiana right now?
Well, actually, they do. I'm so sorry. Let me back up.
Like, wait a minute.
Let me back up, because if you go to houseinthecar.com and you click on the ambassador list, you will see Kiana's information. So I do apologize. You are so right, Letitia. You know what? I'm doing us a disservice, because houseinthecar.com is available for all of you consumers to go on. You can find your ambassadors in different cities all over the country, and Kiana is one of them. So definitely go online to houseinthecar.com. You'll be able to see the ambassador list, as well as whatever's going on in your city. We have our resource tab, which is phenomenal. So guys, we talked about down payment assistance. We talked about our realtors. So these are some of the resources that are available to you at houseinthecar.com.
Good deal. Well, thank you guys so very much. Thank you all for joining us. Of course, Latonya, it's always a pleasure to share the virtual stage with you. So glad that we get to do that for yet another 3 episodes in series 2. This this concludes series 1. We'll be moving on next week over to series 2, and we have 3 episodes there. Facebook audience, thank you so much for joining us.
All right, be blessed.
Thank you, guys.